Admiral Kim Tae-sung stood on the bridge of the human battleship Seoul Pride, watching the massive alien ships appear in space around Kepler Station. Each alien vessel was 3 times larger than his biggest warship. Their dark metal hulls gleamed with strange blue lights, and energy weapons that could destroy planets pointed directly at the human colony. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Lee Minji, her voice shaking slightly. "It's coming from their flagship." "Put it on screen," Kim Tae-sung ordered. The main display filled with the image of an alien creature unlike anything humans had ever seen. It stood 8 feet tall with 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. Its skin was dark purple with silver markings that seemed to move like liquid metal. Most terrifying were its eyes, completely black with no pupils, like looking into deep space. "I am Supreme Commander Kethvar of the Vorthak Empire," the alien spoke in perfect human language. "We have conquered 12 species across this galaxy. Today we offer humanity the same choice we gave them all." Kim Tae-sung stepped forward. "This is Admiral Kim Tae-sung of the Human Colonial Defense Fleet. What do you want?" Kethvar's mouth opened, showing rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Your surrender. Join our empire as a servant species and your people will live to serve us. Refuse and we will destroy every human world until nothing remains but ash and memory." Dr. Park Mi-young, the colony's chief scientist, was watching from the science station. She had studied alien contact protocols for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The Vorthak fleet was enormous, over 200 warships that dwarfed anything humanity had built. "You have 72 hours to decide," Kethvar continued. "We will wait in orbit around your station. When the time ends, give us your answer. Choose wisely, humans. No species has ever refused our offer and survived." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Captain Lee Dong-ho, commanding the destroyer Busan Runner, spoke over the comm system. "Admiral, their smallest ships have more firepower than our entire fleet. How do we fight something like this?" Kim Tae-sung looked at the tactical display showing Vorthak positions. 200 alien ships surrounded Kepler Station like hungry wolves circling sheep. The human fleet had only 36 vessels, and most were small patrol ships designed for fighting pirates, not alien empires. "Dr. Park," the Admiral said, "what do you know about these Vorthak?" Dr. Park Mi-young pulled up her research files. "I've been analyzing their transmission and ship designs. Something interesting, sir. Look at their fleet formation." She displayed the Vorthak positions on the main screen. "They've arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around our station. Every ship is exactly the same distance from us. This isn't a military formation, it's a display formation." "What does that mean?" asked Captain Lee Dong-ho. "It means they're not expecting a fight," Dr. Park explained. "Real military formations have overlapping fields of fire, escape routes, and tactical flexibility. This formation is designed to look impressive, not to win battles." Kim Tae-sung studied the display carefully. "Keep analyzing. I want to know everything about how they think and fight." Over the next day, Dr. Park Mi-young worked with the intelligence team to study Vorthak behavior. They monitored alien communications, analyzed ship movements, and reviewed every detail of the first contact. "Admiral, I think I found something important," Dr. Park announced during the morning briefing. "I've been studying records of their previous conquests. Every single species they defeated surrendered immediately after seeing their fleet." "All of them?" asked Lee Dong-ho. "Everyone. The pattern is always the same. The Vorthak arrive with overwhelming force, make their ultimatum, and the target species surrenders within hours. They've never actually fought a real war." Kim Tae-sung felt something cold settle in his stomach. "They don't know how to fight someone who says no." "Exactly. Their empire is built on fear and intimidation. They've conquered 12 species without firing a shot. They have big ships and powerful weapons, but they've never had to use them against organized resistance." The Admiral walked to the window overlooking Kepler Station. Below he could see families going about their daily lives. Children playing in the parks, workers maintaining the colony's systems, elderly couples walking together. These people trusted him to protect them. "What do you recommend, Doctor?" Dr. Park Mi-young took a deep breath. "Sir, I think we should refuse their ultimatum. They're bullies with big sticks, but they don't know how to swing them. If we fight smart, we might have a chance." "Fight smart against 200 warships?" Captain Lee asked. "They'll blast us to pieces in the first 5 minutes." "Maybe. said Kim Tae-sung slowly. But Dr. Park is right about one thing. They're expecting us to surrender. They probably don't even have battle plans ready. Why would they need them if nobody ever fights back? The Admiral activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Kim Tae-sung. In 18 hours, I'm going to give the Vorthak our answer. Before I do, I want every captain to understand what we're facing. He paused, looking at the faces of his officers on the screen. The Vorthak have bigger ships and better weapons. They outnumber us 6-1. By every measure, we should surrender and hope they treat us well as slaves. But there's something they don't understand about humans. Kim Tae-sung thought about human history. Thousands of years of warfare, revolution, and survival against impossible odds. We've been fighting each other since we lived in caves. We've perfected warfare through millennia of conflict. We know things about battle that the Vorthak have never learned because they've never needed to learn them. They think war is about having the biggest guns. We know it's about having the strongest will. The Admiral straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. When the time comes, I'm going to tell them that humanity chooses to fight. We've been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Today we find out. As the deadline approached, Kim Tae-sung prepared his final message. The bridge crew watched nervously as he opened communications with the Vorthak flagship. Kethavar appeared on screen, his black eyes gleaming with anticipated victory. Admiral, your time has ended. What is humanity's answer? Kim Tae-sung stood straight and proud. Supreme Commander, humanity's answer is simple. We choose to fight. You came here expecting easy prey, but you found something else entirely. You're about to learn why humans have never been conquered by anyone. The alien's face showed confusion, then anger. You choose death over service? Your species is truly insane. No, said Kim Tae-sung quietly. We're just human. And now you're going to learn what that means. The Vorthak attack began at dawn across 12 human colonies simultaneously. Their plan was simple. Overwhelming force would crush human resistance in hours. They had done this 12 times before with other species. It had always worked. On New Sol Colony, Colonel Han Soo-jin watched the alien dropships descend through the morning sky like deadly metal rain. Each ship carried 100 Vorthak soldiers in powered armor that could stop human bullets. The aliens expected to find terrified civilians running in panic. Instead, they found empty streets. All units, this is Colonel Han, she spoke into her radio. Remember the plan. Let them land. Let them spread out. Then we show them how humans fight on our own ground. The first Vorthak soldiers stepped out of their ships into what looked like a deserted city. Their sensors detected no military forces, no weapons emplacements, no signs of organized resistance. Their commander, war leader Thekmol, was pleased. This would be another easy victory. That's when the first building exploded. Engineer Choi Hye-rim had spent 3 days turning New Seoul's industrial district into a maze of death traps. She used mining charges to collapse tunnels, turned construction equipment into remote-controlled weapons, and wired every major building with explosives. When the Vorthak soldiers walked down Main Street, she pressed a button and brought down half the city block on top of them. Target-rich environment, she whispered into her radio, watching alien soldiers scramble for cover, beginning Phase 2. From hidden positions throughout the city, human colonists opened fire. These weren't soldiers. They were farmers, mechanics, teachers, and shopkeepers. But they all knew how to use weapons, and they all had something worth fighting for. The Vorthak had expected to fight an army. Instead, they faced an entire population that refused to surrender. War leader Thekmol tried to organize his forces, but the humans were fighting unlike anything in Vorthak military doctrine. They didn't hold positions or form battle lines. They struck from hidden spots, killed a few aliens, then disappeared before the Vorthak could respond. Where are their forces? He demanded over the radio. Why can't we find their army? His lieutenant's response was confused. Sir, I think we are fighting their army. It's everyone. Above the planet, Lieutenant Nam Wubin led a squadron of human fighters against the Vorthak fleet. His ships were tiny compared to the alien vessels, but they moved like angry wasps around sleeping giants. Dragon Squadron, this is Dragon Leader. Nam spoke into his radio. Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to teach them something. The human fighters attacked in ways that made no sense to Vorthak tactical computers. Instead of focusing fire on critical systems, They targeted non-essential areas. Instead of retreating when damaged, they pressed attacks even harder. Some human pilots deliberately crashed their fighters into alien gun positions, sacrificing themselves to destroy single weapons. "Why do they fight like this?" asked the Vorthak fleet commander. "They're trading valuable ships for minor damage. It's completely inefficient." His tactical officer had no answer. Vorthak doctrine emphasized preserving resources and maximizing efficiency. The idea of deliberately sacrificing expensive equipment for small gains was incomprehensible, but the human attacks were having an unexpected effect. Vorthak gunners began hesitating before firing, afraid that hitting a human fighter might cause it to crash into their ship. The aliens started pulling back from human formations, giving the smaller human fleet more room to maneuver. Back on New Seoul, Colonel Han Soo-jin was leading her Marines through the underground tunnel system. They had been fighting for 6 hours, and the Vorthak were learning that taking a human city was different from occupying an empty one. "Colonel, they're trying to establish a command post in the government building," reported Sergeant Oteho over the radio. "Not for long," Han replied. "Choi, can you reach that building?" Engineer Choi Hye-rim checked her tablet showing the city's infrastructure. "Give me 10 minutes and I can cut their power, water, and communications. 20 minutes and I can flood the basement with toxic gas from the chemical plant. Do it. Make them understand that every building in this city is a weapon." The Vorthak had superior armor, better weapons, and overwhelming numbers, but they had never fought an enemy that turned an entire city into a battlefield. Every room could hide snipers. Every door could be booby-trapped. Every street corner could become a killing zone. War leader Thekmal found himself fighting a war he didn't understand. His soldiers were trained for conventional battles against organized armies. They knew how to destroy military bases and government centers. They didn't know how to fight shop owners who turned their stores into fortresses, or children who threw homemade bombs from school windows. "This is madness," he reported to the fleet. "They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to hurt us as much as possible before they die." The fleet commander was having similar problems in space. Human ships kept attacking even when they were obviously doomed. Damaged human vessels tried to ram Vorthak ships instead of retreating. Human fighters with empty weapons still tried to crash into alien gun positions. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "we're taking heavier losses than expected. Not enough to threaten the fleet, but more than any previous conquest." "How much more?" "In 6 hours of fighting, we've lost more ships than in our last 3 conquests combined." The fleet commander studied the battle reports. Something was wrong. His forces were winning. Human resistance was collapsing across all fronts. But the humans weren't surrendering. They just kept fighting even when fighting was hopeless. On New Seoul, engineer Choi Hye-rim was trapped in the ruins of the power plant with 3 other colonists. Vorthak soldiers surrounded the building, and escape was impossible. She looked at her remaining explosives and made a decision. "This is Choi Hye-rim to all colonial forces," she said into her radio. "I'm about to show these aliens something they've never seen before." She armed every explosive charge in the building and waited for the Vorthak to enter. "You want our city?" she said to herself. "Then pay for every inch of it." The explosion that destroyed the power plant also took out 50 Vorthak soldiers and their equipment. More importantly, it sent a message that reached every human fighter on the planet. They would not surrender. They would not retreat. They would make the Vorthak pay in blood for every street, every building, every room. As the day ended, the Vorthak controlled most of New Seoul Colony. But they had learned something that troubled their commanders deeply. Humans didn't fight like any species they had conquered before. Other species fought to preserve their armies. Humans fought to destroy their enemies, even if it meant destroying themselves in the process. Other species surrendered when defeat became inevitable. Humans fought harder when things looked hopeless. Other species tried to minimize casualties. Humans seemed to view casualties as investments in making their enemies suffer. War leader Thekmal sent his report to the fleet. Colony secured, but resistance was fiercer than expected. Recommend revised tactics for future human engagements. What he didn't say was that his soldiers were beginning to fear fighting humans. They had expected easy victory over primitives. Instead, they had found an enemy that seemed to welcome death as long as they could take aliens with them. The fleet commander read similar reports from all 12 colony attacks. Every Vorthak force had won their battles. But every victory had cost more than expected. For the first time in Vorthak history, they had encountered a species that drew first blood, and somehow, despite losing every battle, the humans had managed to make the Vorthak afraid of what would happen next. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the war had changed completely. The Vorthak Empire that had once conquered species in days now found itself locked in a grinding conflict with an enemy that seemed to improve with every battle. In a hidden asteroid base in the Kuiper Belt, Dr. Kwon Ji-hoon stood before a room full of weapons that shouldn't exist. His research team had been working around the clock, creating hybrid technologies that combined the best of human and Vorthak engineering. "Show me the latest results," he said to his lead engineer. Dr. Bae Yeonsu. Dr. Bae activated a test weapon that looked like a human rifle, but glowed with Vorthak energy patterns. "We've solved the power problem. This weapon uses Vorthak plasma technology with human targeting systems. It's 3 times more accurate than anything the aliens have. And the shield penetrators? Even better. We've figured out how to make our projectiles shift frequencies while in flight. Vorthak shields can't adapt fast enough to stop them." Dr. Kwon smiled grimly. "What about the Cyber Warfare Division?" Dr. Bae led him to another section of the lab where programmers worked at computers showing alien code. "We've cracked their communication protocols. Better than that, we've learned to write viruses that their systems think are updates." The human war effort had evolved far beyond simple defense. Every captured Vorthak ship was stripped down and studied. Every piece of alien technology was reverse engineered and improved. Most importantly, every battle was analyzed to understand how the Vorthak thought and fought. Commander Park Soo-young led the special operations teams that made this intelligence gathering possible. Her soldiers didn't just destroy enemy ships, they captured them intact, along with their crews and computers. "Target confirmed," she whispered into her radio as her team prepared to board a damaged Vorthak supply ship. "Remember, we need their navigation computers and any ranking officers alive." Her team moved through the alien vessel like ghosts. They had studied Vorthak ship layouts until they could navigate them in the dark. They knew where the important systems were located, how to disable security measures, and most crucially, how to take prisoners without alerting the rest of the fleet. 20 minutes later, Commander Park had 3 Vorthak officers in custody and complete copies of their ship's computer systems. "Intelligence coup," she reported to headquarters. "We've got their supply routes, fleet positions, and tactical manuals for the next 6 months. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The AI computer system that humans had named Sejong, after their ancient king, had been analyzing Vorthak battle data for months. What it discovered changed everything. "Admiral Lim Haijun, priority alert," Sejong announced in its calm artificial voice. "I have identified critical patterns in Vorthak military doctrine." Admiral Lim, who commanded the growing human expeditionary fleet, studied the data on his screen. "What kind of patterns?" "The Vorthak military system has not evolved in 1,047 years, Sejong reported. "Their tactics, formations, and strategic thinking follow the same patterns used in their first conquest. They learn from individual battles, but they never change their fundamental approach to warfare." Admiral Lim felt a cold smile cross his face. "They're fighting the same war they fought 1,000 years ago." "Correct. More significantly, they appear incapable of genuine innovation. They improve existing systems but never create entirely new approaches. This explained why humans were winning battles against superior technology. The Vorthak had spent centuries perfecting their tools, but had forgotten how to think creatively about using them." Commander Park Soo-young's intelligence teams confirmed Sejong's analysis during interrogations of captured Vorthak officers. "They don't understand what we're doing," reported Captain Kim Jun-ho, Park's intelligence specialist. "We showed a captured Vorthak commander recordings of our Earth defense battle. He kept asking how we knew their attack patterns in advance." "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that we had studied their previous battles and predicted their moves." He couldn't understand the concept. To him, each battle is separate. They don't see the larger patterns. This cognitive blindness gave humans an enormous advantage. While the Vorthak repeated the same mistakes, human forces evolved their tactics daily. What worked in one battle was improved for the next. What failed was abandoned and replaced with something better. Dr. Kwon Ji-hoon's weapons research reflected this adaptive approach. We don't try to build perfect weapons, he explained to a group of military commanders. We build weapons that can be quickly modified as we learn new things about the enemy. He demonstrated with a new class of human warship. The Incheon-class cruisers can be reconfigured in space. If we discover a new Vorthak weakness, we can adapt our entire fleet in hours, not months. The Vorthak had no equivalent capability. Their ships were built to last centuries without modification. When humans developed new tactics, the aliens needed to build entirely new vessels to counter them. Admiral Lim Haijun tested this advantage during the Battle of Proxima Station. His fleet engaged a Vorthak force using standard human tactics until the alien commander adapted his defenses. Then Lim ordered his ships to reconfigure their weapons and attack patterns in real time. All ships execute Modification 7, he commanded. The human fleet transformed itself during the battle. Weapons that had been firing energy beams switched to kinetic projectiles. Ships that had been fighting individually formed coordinated groups. Attack patterns that had been predictable became chaotic. The Vorthak commander, war leader Vecthara, watched in confusion as the human fleet he had been fighting became an entirely different enemy in the middle of combat. How is this possible? He demanded. Their ships are changing their capabilities during battle. His tactical officer had no explanation. Vorthak doctrine didn't include procedures for enemies that could transform their fighting style without warning. The Battle of Proxima Station ended with complete human victory. More importantly, it demonstrated that human forces could out-evolve Vorthak adaptations in real time. Commander Park Soo-young interrogated war leader Vecthara after his capture. "Tell me about your training," she said. "I studied the same tactical manuals as every Vorthak commander," Vecthara replied. "I learned the formations and strategies that have conquered 12 species." "When did those manuals last change?" Vecthara looked confused by the question. "Change? They are perfect." "Why would they change?" Park understood then why humans were winning. The Vorthak had achieved tactical perfection for fighting wars against other Vorthak. But they had never faced an enemy that refused to play by their rules. Sejong confirmed this analysis in its next strategic report. Vorthak military doctrine assumes that all species fight according to logical, predictable patterns. They cannot adapt to enemies who fight illogically. "We don't fight illogically," Admiral Lim pointed out. "We fight creatively." To Vorthak thinking, creativity and illogic are the same thing, Sejong replied. They have optimized their military system for efficiency and predictability. These strengths become weaknesses when facing human adaptive tactics. The war was turning into a contest between Vorthak perfection and human innovation. Every battle proved that perfection was fragile, while innovation was unstoppable. Dr. Kwon Ji-hoon's latest creation demonstrated this principle. His team had built weapons that literally evolved during combat, using AI systems to modify their own operation based on target response. "The weapon learns from every shot it fires," he explained. "By the end of a battle, it's completely different from how it started." The Vorthak had no defense against weapons that, improved themselves faster than alien shields, could adapt. As human fleets began pushing into Vorthak territory, Supreme Commander Kethvar faced a crisis his empire had never experienced. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vorthak were losing a war. "How do we fight an enemy that changes faster than we can respond?" he asked his staff. His advisors had no answer. Their entire civilization was built on the assumption that military perfection was achievable and permanent. The idea that warfare could be an endless cycle of adaptation and counter-adaptation was beyond their understanding. Meanwhile, human forces continued to evolve. Every victory taught them new lessons. Every defeat showed them better approaches. The species that had once faced extinction was now hunting the hunters. The Vorthak Empire was about to learn that choosing to fight humanity meant facing an enemy that got stronger with every battle. The Vorthak fleet approached Earth's solar system 3 months after their victory at the outer colonies. Supreme Commander Kethvar expected to find humanity's homeworld ready to surrender. The outer colonies had fallen, human military forces were scattered, and Earth stood alone against the full might of the Vorthak Empire. He had never been more wrong about anything in his life. Fleet Admiral Yoon Jae-ho stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Korean peninsula, watching the alien fleet approach on his screens. Around him, hundreds of officers coordinated the defense of humanity's birthworld. But unlike the desperate last stands at the colonies, Earth's defenders looked calm, almost confident. "Admiral, the Vorthak fleet has entered the outer system," reported Captain An Minho from his position aboard the experimental warship Sejong the Great. 230 ships. Same formation they used at the colonies. "Perfect," said Admiral Yoon. "They're doing exactly what we expected. Signal all units. Begin Operation Homecoming." General Song Yoon AA activated the planetary defense grid from her position in the Seoul command bunker. Across Earth's surface, hidden installations powered up. The Vorthak sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing where nothing had been visible moments before. "What are they seeing?" asked Admiral Yoon. "Confusion, sir," reported the intelligence officer. "Their communications show complete surprise. They expected orbital defenses, but not like this." The truth was that Earth's defenses had been designed specifically to fight the Vorthak. Every battle at the outer colonies had been carefully observed and analyzed. Human scientists had studied Vorthak weapons, tactics, and technology. The apparent defeats had actually been training exercises on a massive scale. Captain An Minho's ship was proof of how much humans had learned. The Sejong the Great looked like a standard human cruiser, but its armor was made from captured Vorthak materials. Its weapons used modified alien technology, and its shields were based on Vorthak designs with human improvements. "Captain An, show them what we've learned," ordered Admiral Yoon. The Sejong the Great decloaked directly in front of the Vorthak flagship. Cathvar stared in shock at the human ship that had appeared from nowhere, its hull gleaming with the same energy patterns as Vorthak vessels. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Those are our shield frequencies." His tactical officer ran scan after scan. "Sir, they're using our own technology, but modified. Their shields are 40% more efficient than ours." Captain An Minho opened communications with the Vorthak flagship. "Supreme Commander Cathvar, this is Captain An of the Human Defense Fleet. We've been expecting you." "Impossible," Cathvar snarled. "You cannot have our technology. No species has ever stolen from the Vorthak Empire." "We didn't steal it," An replied calmly. "You gave it to us. Every time you attacked our colonies, we learned something new. Every weapon you fired, every shield you used, every tactic you employed. We studied it all. Thank you for the education." The Vorthak fleet moved into attack formation, but something was wrong. Human ships appeared everywhere, using cloaking technology that shouldn't exist. Weapons platforms materialized in the asteroids, powered by reactors that human science couldn't possibly build. Except humans had built them, using Vorthak technology as a starting point. Dr. Kwon Ji-hoon had led the research team that reverse-engineered alien technology. Working from wreckage and captured equipment, his scientists had unlocked Vorthak secrets in months. But they hadn't simply copied alien designs, they had improved them. The key was understanding their mindset, Dr. Kwon explained to Admiral Yoon over the radio. The Vorthak build everything to last for centuries. They prioritize reliability over performance. We prioritized performance over everything else. The result was human weapons that hit harder, human shields that lasted longer, and human ships that moved faster than anything the Vorthak had ever seen. General Song Yoon coordinated the planetary defenses as the first Vorthak ships entered Earth's gravity well. Hidden gun positions opened fire with weapons that phased through Vorthak shields like they weren't there. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" demanded the Vorthak fleet commander. His engineer checked the readings. "Sir, they're using our own shield frequencies against us." "Their weapons are calibrated to pass through our barriers." The Vorthak had spent 1,000 years perfecting their technology. They built their shields to stop their own weapons, never imagining that an enemy might learn to use those same frequencies. Captain An Minho led a squadron of human ships in an attack on the Vorthak center. His vessels moved through space like dancers, using gravity assists and orbital mechanics that the rigid Vorthak formations couldn't match. "All ships, execute Pattern 7, he ordered. The human fleet scattered in all directions, then regrouped behind the Vorthak formation. They had used Earth's moon as a gravitational slingshot, accelerating to speeds that Vorthak computers said were impossible for ships that size. "Sir, they're everywhere," reported the Vorthak tactical officer. "We can't track their movements. They appear, strike, and vanish before we can respond." Cathvar watched his perfect invasion plan fall apart. The humans weren't fighting the same war as the Vorthak. While his ships tried to maintain formation and follow doctrine, the human vessels acted like individual hunters, each choosing its own prey. Admiral Yoon Jae-ho monitored the battle from his command center. Signal all units, begin Phase 2. Across the solar system, hidden human bases revealed themselves. Mars had been turned into a weapons platform. The asteroid belt held a dozen secret shipyards. Even Earth's moon concealed massive railguns that could punch through Vorthak armor. 3 months, Admiral Yoon said to his staff. 3 months since their first attack, and we've built a defense network that they can't understand, using their own technology against them. General Song activated the orbital defense platforms. Weapons that had been disguised as communication satellites opened fire on the Vorthak fleet. Each shot was precisely targeted, using battle data collected from the colony fights. The Vorthak found themselves fighting an enemy that knew their weaknesses better than they knew them themselves. Captain On. Minho's ship engaged 3 Vorthak cruisers simultaneously. His weapons cut through their shields while his own barriers deflected their return fire. The alien ships had been designed to fight other Vorthak vessels, not weapons that had been specifically built to destroy them. "This is impossible," radioed one of the Vorthak captains. "How can primitives fight like this?" "We're not primitives," An replied over the open channel. "We're humans, and we've been studying you since the day you arrived." The battle for Earth lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Vorthak fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind 30 destroyed ships and hundreds of disabled vessels. The human defense fleet had lost only 12 ships, and most of their crews had been rescued. Supreme Commander Kethvar sat in his damaged flagship, staring at the tactical displays in disbelief. His empire had just suffered its first major defeat in over 1,000 years. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human admiral." Admiral Yoon Jae-ho appeared on the screen, looking calm and confident. "Supreme Commander, this is Fleet Admiral Yoon of the Human Defense Forces. We wanted to thank you for visiting Earth." "Thank us?" Kethvar couldn't hide his confusion. "You've taught us valuable lessons about warfare. We've learned that bigger ships don't always win. Better technology isn't enough if you don't know how to use it. And most importantly, we've learned that the Vorthak Empire isn't as invincible as you believed." Yoon leaned forward slightly. "We're going to take these lessons and share them with every species you've conquered. They're going to learn that the Vorthak can be beaten." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. For the first time in his life, he understood what fear meant. The humans hadn't just defended their world. They had turned his own strengths against him and made his technology obsolete. Worse, they had made it look easy. 1 year after the first Vorthak attack, Admiral Lim Hae-jun stood on the bridge of his flagship as the human expeditionary fleet entered enemy territory. Behind him stretched an armada unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships enhanced with alien technology, crewed by soldiers who had learned to fight smarter than their enemies. "All ships, this is Admiral Lim," he announced over the fleet communications. "Today we begin Operation Liberation. We're not here to conquer. We're here to free every species the Vorthak have enslaved." The first target was Kepler 442b, home to the Nixari people who had been conquered 200 years earlier. According to intelligence reports, the planet was defended by a standard Vorthak garrison, 50 ships and ground forces that had never faced serious resistance. That was about to change. Major Kang, Sora led the liberation forces from her assault ship Liberation Dawn. Her troops were volunteers from across human space, soldiers who had seen what the Vorthak did to conquered peoples and refused to let it continue. "Remember your training," she told her officers. "We're not fighting the Vorthak military. We're fighting their entire system of oppression. Every shot we fire is for every species that never got the chance to fight back." The human fleet approached Kepler 442b, using new stealth technology that made them invisible to Vorthak sensors. Dr. Kwon Ji-hoon's research teams had cracked alien detection systems months ago, creating cloaking fields that were undetectable by enemy equipment. Garrison Commander Mordeth was reviewing routine patrol reports when his sensors suddenly detected a massive fleet materializing around his planet. One moment space was empty, the next it was filled with human warships that shouldn't exist. "Alert status red," he commanded. "All ships to defensive positions." But his ships moved too slowly. While the Vorthak scrambled to respond, Human forces had already surrounded the planet and disabled the orbital defense platforms. Admiral Lim opened communications with the Vorthak garrison. "Garrison Commander, this is Admiral Lim Hai-jun of the Human Liberation Fleet. You have 10 minutes to surrender and evacuate this system." "Impossible," Morteth replied. "You cannot have traveled this far into Vorthak space. Your species lacks the technology for such operations. We learned from the best teachers," Admiral Lim said calmly. "You taught us everything we needed to know. Now we're using those lessons to set free everyone you've enslaved." The Battle of Kepler 442b lasted less than 4 hours. Human ships outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outthought the Vorthak defenders at every turn. More shocking to the aliens was that the human weapons seemed designed specifically to counter Vorthak defenses. "Their energy signatures match our own systems," reported the Vorthak tactical officer. "How do they know our shield frequencies?" The answer was simple. Humans had captured enough Vorthak equipment to reverse engineer everything. But more than that, they had improved on alien designs until human technology was superior to its original sources. Major Kang So-ra's forces landed on the planet while the space battle was still raging. They didn't target Vorthak military bases first. They went straight to the cities where Nexari civilians lived under alien rule. "Attention, Nexari people," she broadcast over captured Vorthak communication systems. "This is Major Kang So-ra of the Human Liberation Forces. We're here to set you free. Rise up and reclaim your world." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Nexari civilians who had lived as slaves for 2 centuries suddenly saw their oppressors' ships burning in the sky. They poured into the streets, overwhelming Vorthak ground forces that had never faced a planetary uprising. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the planet," the Vorthak ground commander reported to Morteth. "The Nexari are rebelling everywhere. Our garrison forces are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. How is this possible? The Nexari have been pacified for generations." "They were pacified because they had no hope," Major Kang explained over the radio channel she had hacked. "We gave them hope. Now watch what happens when people fight for their freedom." The Nexari weren't warriors like humans, but they didn't need to be. They knew their own world better than any Vorthak soldier. They knew where the alien supply depots were hidden, which buildings contained communication equipment, and how to shut down the infrastructure that kept their oppressors in control. Within hours, the planet-wide rebellion had cut off every Vorthak stronghold from support and supplies. Ambassador Shin Kyung-min arrived with the second wave of human ships, carrying diplomatic teams and relief supplies. Her job was to help liberated species rebuild their societies and join the growing alliance against the Vorthak Empire. "People of Nexar," she announced, from the planetary communication center that Nexari rebels had captured, "humanity offers you friendship and protection. We ask for nothing except that you help us free other enslaved worlds." The Nexari response surprised even the humans. Their leaders didn't just accept human alliance. They begged to join human military forces. "For 200 years we dreamed of revenge against the Vorthak," said Elder Kiravan, the Nexari leader. "Now you show us it's possible. Let us fight beside you." This pattern repeated across a dozen worlds as human liberation forces swept through Vorthak territory. Each victory brought new allies who had suffered under alien rule. Each liberated species added their knowledge and resources to the growing coalition. The Zephyrians brought advanced computer technology. The Crystalli shared their expertise in energy weapons. The Novan contributed their knowledge of Vorthak psychology from centuries of captivity. "We're not just fighting a war anymore," Admiral Lim reported to Earth Command. "We're leading a revolution. Every species the Vorthak conquered is rising up to join us." Supreme Commander Kethavar watched his empire crumble from his flagship deep in Vorthak space. Reports flooded in from across his territory, human fleets appearing without warning, planetary rebellions breaking out simultaneously, garrison forces being overwhelmed by their former slaves. "How are they coordinating these attacks?" he demanded of his intelligence chief. "They're striking dozens of worlds at the same time across thousands of light years." "Sir, we believe they're using our own communication networks against us," the intelligence officer reported. "Somehow they've learned to encode their messages in ways our systems can't detect." The truth was even worse than Kethavar feared. Commander Park Soo-young's special operations teams had been infiltrating Vorthak networks for months, stealing codes and planting surveillance programs. The aliens were unknowingly carrying human intelligence through their own communication systems. We know where every Vorthak ship is at all times, Park explained to Admiral Lim. We know their patrol routes, their supply schedules, and their defensive plans. They're fighting blind while we can see everything. The strategic advantage was overwhelming. Human forces struck where Vorthak defenses were weakest while avoiding heavily fortified positions. They captured supply convoys and isolated garrison forces from reinforcement. Most devastatingly, they shared their tactical knowledge with every liberated species. The military techniques that humans had developed for fighting Vorthak forces spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Sir, we're receiving reports of rebellion on 37 worlds, the Vorthak intelligence chief reported. The humans are teaching insurgency tactics to every species we've conquered. Send reinforcements to suppress the uprisings. Which ones, sir? They're happening everywhere at once. We don't have enough ships to cover them all. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vorthak Empire was stretched beyond its capacity to maintain control. They had built their power on the assumption that conquered species would stay conquered. Nobody had ever taught them how to fight a galaxy-wide revolution. Ambassador, Shin Kyung-min was building something that had never existed before. An alliance of free species united by their hatred of Vorthak oppression. The Galactic Liberation Alliance grew stronger with every victory. We offer every species the same choice, she announced in broadcasts that reached across Vorthak space. Join us as equals in a galaxy where freedom matters more than power. Help us show the Vorthak that their age of conquest is over. The response was immediate. Resistance movements that had been suppressed for centuries suddenly had hope, weapons, and training. The Vorthak found themselves fighting not just human forces but entire populations that refused to submit. War leader Drakmor, commanding the defense of the Altair system, sent a desperate message to Supreme Command. Request immediate evacuation. Human forces have turned the entire civilian population against us. We cannot hold this position. Similar messages flooded in from across the Empire. Vorthak commanders who had ruled through fear and intimidation found themselves facing enemies who no longer feared them. Admiral Lim studied the strategic situation from his command ship. In 18 months, human forces had liberated over 50 star systems and inspired rebellions on 100 more. The Vorthak Empire was collapsing from within as subject species remembered what freedom meant. Signal all fleet commanders, he ordered. Begin Phase 3 of Operation Liberation. It's time to take this war to the Vorthak homeworld. The hunters had become the hunted. The empire that had conquered 12 species was about to face the combined fury of all their former victims.